I'm Grady from Grady's Feet Essentials on King Street.
And I'm Kelly Grady.
And we're here today to talk about what to look for in winter footwear to help prevent falls. So we have a selection of men's and women's boots. We're going to go from mobility, it's nice and easy to get on. We're going to talk about what to look for in grip. We're going to talk about different compounds of the soles that give better grip in certain conditions. And then we're going to talk about the boots that have the spikes in them that you've heard so much about.
All right, so I think we'll start off with, if you're somebody who has lower mobility, and so maybe you're having issues with arthritis in your hands, it's difficult to get something on and off, then you obviously need to choose a boot with Velcro or something to flip into that's easy. If you also have orthotics, then you want it to have that Velcro, but also removable insoles. And obviously having that support in your boots is going to help you with your stability. So it's important that it's able to accommodate you for that.
This is one of the men's boots with the Velcro on it. There's also women's versions. And these are waterproof boots. Now, in terms of the soles on them, that's what you want to be careful about. The soles on these boots, they're rubber soles, but what you want to look for is the depth of sole. And you can see with this one here, it's rubber, but there's not a lot of deep grooves in it. And that one's a little bit better.
This one has more, and it feels rubbery when you touch this one.
Yeah, so these I would say would be medium in terms of being slippery in the snow. You're not going to want to, if you have limited mobility, this one here, you're going to want to be careful. You want to make sure that somebody's helping you walk with these on if you don't have really good mobility.
Yeah, like what's good for this one is if you're not able to lift your feet up very well and you're kind of shuffling a bit more, then this isn't going to trip you up. So you have to think about your level of mobility with what you choose. It's not always best to have the most grip if it's going to create you, causing your foot to get caught and to trip. So this one, if you need to slide, this will be more able to accommodate that.
Yeah, and there's also, for men, there's also the traditional zip up, double zip boot that are waterproof again with the same sole on them. Yeah.
And then obviously lace up. If you're able to do lace up, the beauty of laces is that you really can tighten it up, because if you can make it tighter around your foot and around your ankle, then the boot isn't sliding around your foot, and that's giving you more stability.
Good. So the next thing we'll talk about, what do you think, Kelly, is sort of the grippiness of the sole, a medium grip sole for people with pretty decent mobility. So yeah, the Bob's is a good one.
So this boot here, you can see it has a really deep groove in the sole. Lots of grip, nice and rubbery. It is very flat, like you can see, it's a wider base, so that's going to help make it stable also. There is a price to pay for that, though. It makes it heavier. So you do have to think about your ability to lift the weight of the boot.
Yeah, the other thing too that you want to feel, if you rub your foot, your hand on the sole of the boot, if it's gummy and sticky, that's good. The more sticky it is, the better grip that you have in the snow and ice. This is one of the men's versions. Some people like an easy slip-on boot for men, and the same with women, like that there. So you can just put your foot into it. You wouldn't walk forever in one of these, but you can go from here to the car or a short walk with the dog or whatnot. Moving up from there, let's talk about the Arctic ice. Now, the boots we've been talking about so far are decent in the snow and ice, but you have to be really careful. This is new technology called Vibram Arctic Ice, and it came out about what, 4 or 5 years ago, Kelly?
I'm not sure how long.
Yeah, it's been a bit, and how you can tell, it'll actually say Arctic Ice on it on the soles of the footwear, and it's not only for muck, it's also other brands that you can see in other stores.
You can also see that it says Vibram.
On there.
Yeah, that's a brand.
Yeah, so Arctic Ice is a technology that was invented. It's quite unique because it really gives you better traction on wet ice. And inside the sole makeup, you can see these little triangles are little bits of crampons that would give you more grip. You actually can't see them.
Microscopic.
Yeah, you can see them. CBC did a study back a few years ago, and they found this type of footwear excellent. So look for Arctic Ice grip. Now, in terms of a sole, again, you've got good tread. You've got a decent amount of tread on the women's version. And what would you say, Kelly, about fitting?
Well, also when it's got that wider base on it for stability, and it's actually fairly lightweight. And what I like about this style here is that you can tighten it with the lacing around there, but you can leave it looser to slip your foot in.
And some of the boots that are available with the Arctic ice, this is one of the men's. I use this boot when I'm snow blowing, when it gets into the real winter weather.
Yeah, and that would be a woman's equivalent of that. Now, the thing is, sometimes people get overconfident when they know they have this kind of anti-slip in their boots. And you have to remember that there is nothing that's 100% safe for you on ice and slippery conditions.
Yeah.
You still have to walk as if you didn't have that support or that grip on the bottom of your boots, because they're not 100% for everything. You know, when they did that study with CBC, they're like, okay, we had a 7% incline with this amount of water. Like, we're not having the perfect situation, you know, every day. Sometimes you've got ice and on top of it is light snow. You don't know the ice is there. You always have to use the railing. You always have to use small steps and always be cautious. Don't think that you're going to be like Spider-Man that's going to stick.
Exactly. You know? And some of the other styles that come with the Vibram Arctic Ice, like for people that do a lot of hiking, there's the men's version of the Keen, and it has the Vibram Arctic Ice. You lace up, gives you fully waterproof, keep your feet warm, and fairly secure on, again, wet ice surfaces.
Yeah, there's a women's version of that. And so this is great if you're a dog walker, you're doing a lot of walking, you're very active, you want that ankle support, because the other thing that can happen is that, you know, you go off somebody the other day just went off the edge of a curb and twisted the ankle. That extra stability on your ankle can be very helpful if you're doing a lot of walking.
And then we're going to talk now about the spikes. People have talked about these for a number of years. And what are the spike grips on shoes? So some of the footwear that you see now actually has built-in spikes. So they flip out, and you can see they've got spikes on the heel and the toe. Now you saw how I struggled to get that off, to get that open. They actually a lot of them come with a little key that you can use to get that open.
Or you can use your own keys.
Yeah, exactly. For sure. So the thing to be wary of, we tell everyone with these are great boots when they're closed because they're nice and deep. Like treads, they have that gummy rubber feeling to them. And if you're walking in snow and trail walking or walking the dog, these cleats are great for that. But you have to be careful. You don't want to get overconfident. And if you go into, say, a mall or on a flat surface without snow, these actually are very dangerous. You want to make sure that they're flipped over and not out, or you could actually slip very, very easily.
You absolutely cannot wear these indoors. You put these on your wood floor and you just poked a bunch of holes in it for one thing. And if you're on concrete or like the cement, like you're just going to slide all over the place. So you have to be super careful about when you open these up, and also be aware that like, for example, when I use mine, say I'm going out to the Trent Nature Trails and I'm going for a hike, I park, I get there and I'm sitting in the car and I flip them over because I'm more stable as I'm sitting to do it. If you're trying to do it while you're standing, it's very challenging. The other thing is, if you've already started your hike and then you try to flip it, snow does get in those grooves. So you do need to clean them out with your little key in order to flip them in place. Otherwise, they might not go all the way in and they could become a tripping hazard. So usually it's best if you assess your situation before you leave on your walk, and you flip them before you go while you're in a stable seated position, and then away you go.
Yeah, and some of they call it the OC system. It was designed in Europe, and it's in other footwear as well. You'll see it. But some of the nice things you get for expressive people that want to still look good and go out hiking, like they've got some nice colors, nice patterns. Again, they have that built-in grip on the sole.
This is a nice one too. When you look at that sole, how flat and stable that is. Those are things that you want to look for. So this is going to be great even when you haven't flipped that over.
So I think that's good information about what to look for to help prevent falls. Again, I'm Tony from Grady's. We've moved down to King Street. We were in Peterborough. Yeah, we were Lansdowne Place for 20 years. Now we are excited. We have our own building here at 231 King. A lot of people know it as the old Angela Mark dress shop.
Yeah, so if you ever need help trying to figure out boots or what would be appropriate for you, we're happy to help.
And any questions too. It doesn't have to be from our store. We're happy to provide any advice or any help we can. Thank you. Oh yes.
A lot of people are concerned when they're like, oh no, it's downtown, but we're actually not.
Nope.
Always free on the street. We have one parking spot dedicated in front of our store on the east side of Elmer Street, beside our building by our back driveway. You can park on the street. Kitty Corner is 1 hour free in front of the apartment buildings. And of course, just down the street is the King Street parking garage, which is much closer than at the mall when you had to park in the parking lot.
Yeah, exactly.
One other thing, we do get questions about people with wheelchairs. Because this is an older building, it's not wheelchair accessible yet. If you are in a wheelchair, we're happy to come and fit you right in the parking lot. So just have someone come in and tell us that you're here.
Or
and
you
we're
can call us from
call
your
us from
phone.
your phone, and we're happy to come out and help with that, because there are 3 steps up to our store at this point.
Yeah, we also do offer free local delivery on Footwear. So if you know exactly what it is that you want, you can call us or order it online and we'll bring it right to you.
Generally, if you've worn it before,
Yeah.
because we can't bring the whole store to you. It's better to come see us so we can
Yeah,
fit you
if you
properly
need- yeah.
here. But our delivery service is pretty much like Amazon, deliver and thank you. You have to bring it back yourself. So thank you for your time today. I hope that was informative, and we appreciate Community Care for asking us to do this.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. So I gonna put it over to Miss Shannon here. Shannon is the next part of the presentation on walking in the winter in boots, right, Shannon?
That is correct. You can hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, great. Yes, so that was wonderful of Grady's to do that presentation for us. I've been so excited about this because I've done a similar presentation every year about this time. And in the past, all I've had is my own winter boots and diagrams or pictures to show people about what I'm talking about. So to have them with their knowledge, expertise, and examples right there was amazing. So to bridge onto that, the footwear can be a big assistance in the winter, but it is not foolproof. It is not going to magically make it so that you can walk on ice and snow without having to worry about falling. It helps, but you still need to be aware of your surroundings and be cautious regardless of what's on your feet. So that's where this next part will come in handy. So I'm gonna give you something to think about is walk like a penguin. If you remember one thing from this presentation, whenever you're walking outdoors on a slippery surface, think of a penguin and how a penguin walks. They have their forces going directly down. They take small waddle type steps because they're short little legs. So we want to kind of emanate that same idea. I'm going to move my computer down so that you can see what my feet and legs are doing here. Hopefully you can see okay. All right, so when I'm walking, if I walk normal, my normal step, I take my foot, I take a step out, and my foot is in front of me, my heel hits the ground, and when I put my force down onto that foot, it actually isn't going directly down, it's going forward and down, which if I'm on a slippery surface, that means I don't have a lot of friction or grip. What's going to happen here is my foot, instead of staying in place, is actually, that's where it's going to slide out from underneath me. That's where you get those slips and falls where you go backwards in the winter and you end up landing on your behind before you even know what's going on. So when we're taking a step in the winter, we want to think of our force going directly down into the ground. And to do this, you need to take a smaller step. And when you put your weight down, your body is going to be directly over top of that foot so that there's no forward and back movement with that leg really. Because if you're putting it forward, it's going to slip out in front. If it's behind you, it'll end up slipping behind. So we want a nice small step with our body weight on top of that front leg. Normally when we take a walking step, our weight remains on the back leg until we transfer forward. We want to immediately transfer our weight onto that front leg, have it directly underneath us. And as we take our next step, we think of the same thing. We're moving our weight directly over top of our foot. So our forces are going directly down into the ground. which is going to eliminate the risk of it slipping forward or back. So front to back, if you see me walk, my steps are going to look almost a little bit more like a waddle step because I don't want to go too big. That's going to change the way the forces are. So waddle, take smaller steps, forces going directly down, take your time, never rushing. One thing you can do to increase a little bit of stability side to side, instead of walking with your feet right together, where we have a very narrow base of support here, you can actually increase the width of your base and take those small steps with your feet wider apart. It's going to give you a little bit of extra stability side to side as well. But again, be mindful of the directional forces. So if your foot goes too far out and you end up putting any force on an angle, that's where you're going to slide out to the side. This is not a slippery floor, so it's not great for me demonstrating this. So you don't want to go so wide that you're pushing on an angle out to the side. You want it to still be underneath you, where all of the forces are going directly down into the ground. So that's what we want to think of in terms of what our feet and our legs are doing. Next, we can even think of it further up the body here. So when we walk on ice, we tend to get a little nervous and we tense up. So as you can see, as I tense up, my center of gravity actually lifts up higher. And now this becomes harder to control. If you've ever been in any of our balance classes, we talk about our center of gravity, wanting it to be a little bit lower all of the time. And when we're on ice, because the risk of falling is much higher, we want to lower that center of gravity as much as we can. So we're taking those small little steps, and we're also actually going to kind of tighten up the muscles through our lower pelvis area and through our glutes. That's going to ground us. So if I've tensed up and I've took my center of gravity up high, but now I'm going to tighten up that lower abdominal area, it's going to bring me back down. You can also bend a little bit through those knees. That's going to give you a little bit of play there as well. So we've got a tightened lower abdominal area to bring that center of gravity down. Our knees are bent a little bit, and we're walking with small steps, our feet directly underneath us, our body weight shifting over that front foot. I know I'm repeating myself a lot, but I'm trying to make sure I get the points across here. Now, what that lower center of gravity does, besides making it easier for us to control, is if you do fall, you're already closer to the ground. It's going to hurt less. There's going to be less impact. So if I have my center of gravity up high and I slip and fall from here, I'm going to go back, and it's actually going to be my upper back and my head area that are going to hit the ground first. And if you're falling on ice, I can tell you that is absolutely the opposite end of the body that we want to hit the ground first. So by tightening those lower abdominals and bending our knees a little bit for walking, and we do by chance happen to fall backwards, I'm already that much closer to the ground. So there's less time for my body to accelerate towards the ground. And I'm more likely to land on the most cushioned area of my body, which is in most cases, especially for us women, in through the hip and behind area. Cushion is good when you're falling. So we're thinking of how we're taking our steps, which is small steps, body weight directly over the front foot, walking like a penguin. And then we're thinking of our center of gravity. We want a low center of gravity. So we're trying to not tense up, try to stay relaxed as much as possible. Slight bend in the knees. If we are tensing up, we want to tense that lower pelvic area. It's going to help lower that center of gravity. And we're taking our time as we walk. And if you do fall, generally on the ice, you have very little time to realize what's going on. But most of the time we fall backwards. So I'm going to go over this next week quite a bit more. But if you do fall, if you can only think of one thing when you're falling on ice, going backwards, I want you to think of tucking your chin towards your chest. Because a lot of falls on the ice, we end up with head injuries because you've hit your head on the ground very hard. and we want to minimize the risk of that. So by tucking your chin down towards your chest, if you do fall backwards, at the very least, your upper back is going to block the impact. And tucking your chin is going to hold it there, so you're not going to hit the back of your head. At the most, you're actually going to land on the nice cushioned area of your body, which has the most padding. And if you do roll back, even with your chin tucked, that upper back is going to block and protect your head so that you don't A, end up hitting it on the ice or the ground, or B, end up with a little bit of whiplash from it flying back and forth. Okay, so I'm going to go over all those steps one more time here for you, standing up. So we're walking on the ice. We want to take small steps, trying to find where you can see me the best. Small steps with our body weight over the front foot, which again is the opposite of what we do in a normal walking step. If we want a little bit of side to side stability, we can widen our base of support, but not so wide that you're creating a sideways force. We're going to have a slight bend in our knees, getting us a little bit closer to the ground. And then we're going to try and tighten up those lower abdominal muscles to lower that center of gravity, because we don't want to be way up here. If we're way up here, if we have all the tension in our neck and shoulders, we're a lot stiffer. We're less able to react to what's happening. And if we do fall with the tension up here, that's where we're going to likely go head first. So that lowered center of gravity, tightened lower abdominal area, bent knees, that's almost rounded us forward a little bit and put us in a position where if we do fall backwards, we're hopefully going to land on our behind. And then if we do fall and we have time to think of one thing, which I completely understand, I sound crazy telling you to think of something while you're falling because it usually happens before you know what's going on. But if you do have time to think of it, you've done all the steps. I want you to tuck your chin towards your chest if you're going backwards or even to the side, because that way when you go down, and I'll do it in very slow motion here. So say I've fallen. This is a very dirty, hard floor, so I'm not going to do a full fall. That's next week. You get to see me fall all over. If I go down, I land on my bum, I got my chin tucked, then even if I continue to go backwards, my upper back is going to block it so that my head does not hit the ground. And head injuries are one of the biggest things that happen with those slips and falls on ice. So tucking that chin, if you are slipping, if you happen to think of it, will absolutely make a big difference for you. All right, so you can think of one thing overall when you're walking on ice. Walk like a penguin. So those small steps where your weight is directly over top of your base of support. So force going straight down. You don't want to be striding out with long steps. That's where you can slide forward or back, and then lower that center of gravity, bend those knees, tighten up through the lower abdominals, or at least bring the tension out of that upper body. And if you do fall, tuck the chin. Next week, I will go over some more things to think about if you fall, if you have time. So tune in for that if you're interested. If anyone has any questions right now about what I've just spoken about, go ahead. You can unmute yourself and ask. No? Okay. So at any time, if you do have questions come up regarding this, feel free to reach out. You can email me. You can catch me on a class sometime. Jody is also a great resource to tap into in terms of the falls prevention, really with any topic. And Grady's did a wonderful presentation. If you have any questions about shoes or footwear, they're a great resource to reach out to. Like Tony said, even if it's not necessarily shoes at their store, they're still more than willing to help you out in any way that they can. And again, I'll answer any questions if you come to me. But thank you very much for joining us today. I think we hit just the right time of year because the snow's just started to fall. And hopefully this will help you a little bit to be more safe and prepared for the winter ahead. Well, thank you very much.